So back to today's agenda, we've done our short welcome and introduction just to Beyond Benign and to the community. So we're really excited to have today joining us from South Africa, Dr. Tricia Naicker, who is an associate professor in the College of Health Science, the discipline of pharmaceutical science at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. She is the first recipient of the 2022 John Warner Early Career Research Prize from Green Chemistry Letters and Reviews. And she was selected specifically by John Warner and the editor-in-chief of the Green Chemistry and Letters and Reviews for her work that's entitled The Need to Merge Supercritical Fluid Chromatography into Undergraduate Curriculum for the 21st Century. In that article, she highlights the importance of introducing students to green analytical techniques, such as supercritical fluids, already at the graduate level. Tricia is passionate about promoting green methodologies within her own country, South Africa, and the world. And so we are honored to have her today joining us. I'm going to turn it over to you now, Tricia, to share your screen and to share your work with us.
Thank you, Natalie. Do you see my screen?
Yes, it looks great and you sound great.
Okay, good day to everybody. Thank you for that introduction and thank you to Beyond Benign for the invite. Yeah, so as Natalie said, I'm talking to you today from the East Coast of South Africa, actually, and my time here is just a few minutes past 6 p.m. So I will be discussing the current need to merge supercritical fluid chromatography, or SFC, that I will refer to it from here on, into undergraduate curricula. For those of you that do not know, SFC is a purification technique that utilizes a supercritical fluid as the mobile phase. This supercritical fluid is a condensed gas and typically is carbon dioxide. Sorry, Natalie, you can see my entire screen, yeah?
Yes, I can see your entire PowerPoint slide. Just the PowerPoint slide.
Okay, no problem, because on my side, I see some pictures on the side and I'm not sure if that was coming up for you, but I think that's just my settings. Sorry about that. We all have to get used to these virtual type of presentations. So essentially, SFC is analogous to normal phase liquid chromatography. So some history about this technique it started in 1958 when someone by the name of Lovelock proposed to use inorganic gases above their critical point as a mobile phase in chromatography. But its first application came in 1962 from the team of Klepser and team to separate thermally labile porphyrins. So its progress was slow, followed by the development and commercialization of open tubular or capillary SFC. This was intended to be an alternative to GC. And in 1981, Lee and his co-worker introduced capillary SFC columns that employed pressure programming of pure CO2. Now, these developments occurred concurrently with the group of Hewlett-Packard, who also developed fused silica capillary columns. Capillary columns for SFC were eventually discontinued due to the poor reproducibility, high cost, and inefficient separation. Thereafter, Hewlett-Packard converted an HPLC system into an SFC system using a pack column. And this became the standard type of column moving forward for this technique. In about 1986, the first chiral separation using this technique was demonstrated for the enantiometric resolution of chiral amides and phosphine oxides. In the early 1990s, interest in packed column SFC was reignited due to advances involving mixed mobile phases and improved pressure gradient techniques. So during the mid to late 1990s, the modern SFC was created to purify pharmaceuticals, thereby sparking Hewlett-Packard's return to the SFC market. And in 2010, Agilent, as we all know, introduced the Affinity Hybrid SFC, while Waters manufactured the Ultra the Equity Ultra High Performance Convergence Chromatography, which is a system which is sold up to this day and it still has that same name. So these SFC instruments brought about an expansion and renewed interest in the field of SFC, since it could be employed for rapid, robust, and high precision method validation of a number of analytes. But already at this time, it was reported in a commentary article that appeared in Analytical Chemistry that supercritical fluid chromatography had established itself in pharmaceutical and petrochemical industries, but had lost ground in academia. Nevertheless, in the past 2 decades, there have been major advancements with the components and software for SFC. This has triggered the resurgence for an increased industrial applications. Some significant advantages include the use of stacked injections. Now, stacked injections allows for higher throughput and the ability to process larger sample volumes, something that we do in our lab all the time. And the electronic back pressure regulator, which was a huge challenge for SFC in the past, is now able to maintain the critical pressures throughout the SFC system. The instruments are now sensitive enough to adjust gradient flow setups, and added advantages of continuously developing more options for stationary phases. And the expansion of usable modifiers for SFC is also allowed for the separation of proteins and peptides. And here you can see this trend illustrated here with these graphs. You can see the demand for SFC purification. I could only find one up until 2011, but you can see the market share is really increasing. The various research areas using supercritical fluid across the board. And this is metrics from Scopus with the number of publications and citations, including the keyword supercritical fluid chromatography. So as we are aware, as chemists, we are trying to move forward towards more benign approaches in the way we do chemistry, as well as the type of chemistry we perform in this world dominated by climate change and sustainability. At my lab, we became very interested in replacing our normal phase benchtop silica gel chromatography with SFC. So there will be no need to work with and dispose of harmful silica gel and deal with the large amount of solvent waste that it generates. And I can confidently tell you that we experience these advantages. The reduction in solvent waste, and I don't have to be signing a bill at the end of the month for the amount of waste that comes out of all the chromatography that my students run. CO2, it's inexpensive, it's not flammable, it's non-hazardous. It really is advantageous to use now at the SFC. And we, in the past, it'll take maybe an whole day, sometimes 2 days to run a column. Here, because of the higher efficiency, the analysis time is so much shorter. And the ease of recycling and unresolved fraction. I mean, everyone here who runs benchtop chromatography knows that if you get a mixture, then you have to repack the column. Here, it's a click of a button where you just ask it to re-inject. So these advantages are real. And this is what a typical SFC looks like. And we had bought ours from a German supplier, a company called Sapiertech. And some applications of my research group is we used SSC to isolate diastereomers and enantiomers of a drug called bedaquiline. It is the most critical pharmaceutical in the world for treating multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. We successfully applied SFC to purify BODP peptides, and BODP is a popular dye imaging agent. We recently were also successful in using SFC to purify larger proteins, including insulin, and we're currently using it for a range of other molecules. At the moment, we are even developing some catalytic reactions in which we replace the solvent completely with CO2, and this work is yet to be published. So, SFC is becoming a mainstream separation technique. It's complementary to liquid and gas chromatography. And there is worldwide demand for more SFC users, since green method development has becoming a favorable target for research into sustainable technologies. SFC teaching or training poses one of the key challenges for its implementation amongst trained personnel in academia and industry. According to an article in 2014, SFC application seeks new users, the author interviewed experts in the field of SFC, and they stated that in the past 20 years, and this is why I showed you the timeline at the first slide. In the past 20 years, academic labs had not implemented the use of SFC since undergraduate and postgraduate students are not trained in this cutting-edge technology. As such, a considerable amount of training must be conducted in order for widespread acceptance of SFC, as scientists are more accustomed to HPLC, which is true. You know, we all know HPLC as the most common isolation and purification technique. So SFC is extensively employed in the pharmaceutical industry, but it's not thoroughly used in academia. And the scarcity of SFC knowledge for graduates may be due to limited academic training in the field, fewer institutions having access to the equipment based on the historically higher costs than HPLC. The consequences of failed acceptance, instrument shortages, and limited undergraduate laboratory exposure to this technology creates this gap in knowledge, which is one of the reasons why I brought about us writing this paper. So graduates without the necessary skills and training will be at risk should they wish to enter industrial sectors already making use of SFC. So the scientific advances in the field of modern day SFC technology, together with the increased industrial application, should warrant its incorporation into core undergraduate pharmaceutical sciences or chemistry curricula. And teaching undergraduate students SFC operation and applications could be implemented in a similar manner to that followed by the authors that I have down here, Wang and Can, to infuse green chemistry into chemistry curricula. And this technology, I believe, can be translated in the context of green chemistry principles for the minimization of waste, energy efficient methods, proper waste management, sustainability, less toxic and renewable reagents. So in conclusion, the future of SFC seems to be beaming since it has solved many of the HPLC limitations. It meets successfully separation requirements, fast, robust, and sensitive, and it champions the approach for greener methodologies. We as educators have a responsibility to accept newer innovative technologies into our curricula that more closely parallels industry trends. It is also imperative that we embrace and teach alternatives to traditional methods that are more sustainable, energy efficient, and cost effective, leading to advantageous impacts on our environment and health. And I believe that the fact that you attend this and you're part of Beyond Benign, you already know this. And you know, the take-home message from this paper for me was the call for higher education institutions to merge SFC topics within undergraduate curricula under the section of chromatography or green chemistry, and also for established researchers in the field to publish simple SFC separatory introductory experimental procedures to better train students, you know, to implement it in a practical, so that students can gain this practical knowledge and experience. And finally, it's recommended for funding agencies to support higher education institutions in purchasing SFC instrumentation to provide graduates with the much needed enhancement of skills in this fast growing and promising area. So with that, I would like to thank you for the invite and thank all the virtual audience for listening to me. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Tricia. That was wonderful. I'm going to open it up. If there's any questions from the audience, you can put them into the chat. You can also either raise your hand or unmute yourself to ask a question. So feel free to do that. We'll give a second to look in. You've got comments coming into the chat. Very good insight for the FSC2. Thanks. Great talk, which I couldn't agree more. And all the things that you mentioned in terms of the responsibility of educators to really prepare students with these skills, and how industry as well should support that as well. Is very much a powerful statement. So thank you for doing that. I see Marcia has her hand up, so I'm going to unmute you. So if actually, it looks like you're already unmuted, so go for it, ask your question.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you. This is my first time participating in anything, and I would be remiss if I just didn't mention how awesome that introduction was with the land acknowledgement. I am a career educator, and I have participated in Zoom meetings, in-person meetings, professional development, professional learning communities, and I have never, ever in my career heard anybody give a land acknowledgement. And I just think it's incredibly awesome that we're getting to a place where we acknowledge those who were here before us. And here in Philadelphia, I have an initiative that I'm going to roll out in September about the Lenni Lenape Nation that occupied this area before William Penn came here and his quote unquote walking treaty. So to hear this is very affirming to me, and I thank you. My question really, I wanted to know if there's anything that we could do on the high school level that would, other than just raise awareness and increase awareness about green chemistry. I would like to know, is there anything in terms of curriculum that we can do at the high school level to kind of pique the interest of high school students?
Sure. So I don't know, Tricia, if you have any insight for that, if you've done any work with high school students, but I will pass it off to you first, but then I can address from the Beyond Benign side.
Sure, thanks. I think in order to get students, high school students interested, you need to show them a real life application. And I know at university that we are trying to implement SFC, for example. I always take something that's relevant to them, something they can see, impurities in water, something that's happening currently in the community and the world, and we use that in a practical, and that suddenly I got the attention of everybody. I mean, now I'm giving a fourth year prac, and it's analysis of CBD oils. So I really got their attention. So it's about just giving them something that they can relate to. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great response. And I will say from Beyond Benign, as I mentioned in the intro, we do K through 12 work as well. And so I know in the supercritical fluid kind of realm, there is a way to extract, I believe it's limonene from orange peels or lemon peels with using materials that you would be able to find and use in a high school setting. So that kind of connection back to the presentation we just had. But we definitely have resources, and I will just mention all of our resources from Beyond Benign are open access, as well as Tricia's paper that was in Green Chemistry Letters and Reviews. That journal is open access as well. So a great place to take green chemistry resources that are out there, like the one that Tricia just shared. I do see another question in the comment section or in the chat section. It's, do you have a lab experiment in SFC that we can use? I have no experience, so don't feel prepared to use it. So Tricia, do you want to speak to that?
This is actually one of my points also in the paper, where I'm trying to appeal to more established researchers in the field, but my lab, we're ourselves working on trying to put a simple experiment together that we can publish as a practical. So you hear from us soon.
Great. So it sounds like more to come from Tricia on this topic. Are there other questions in the chat or any other questions that people would like to unmute? I'm just scanning to see if I've missed any or hands. I see a comment in the chat, actually comes from one of our signers, our first signer in Africa, First Technical University. Is her university a GCC signer? If not, will she be joining us? So I think you've got someone interested in seeing you join us in this community.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I did not know Beyond Benign before Natalie had contacted me, and I see that already one of another university in a slightly different province from me has already joined. So yes, and Definitely, I'm gonna already talk to the head of school at the chemistry department and get this going, because I mean, all of us as chemists, you know, we have this responsibility to change the way we do chemistry and the way we teach chemistry. So definitely, yes.
Great. I like the peer pressure. This is this is great. This is how we get more green chemistry done. I do see another comment or question in the chat of how can we fill the gap between industry and college regarding green chemistry? So I know you spoke a little bit about that, Tricia, if you want to add any comments in there.
Yes, my opinion about this is as academics, we need to keep up with the industry trends. And you know, sometimes as researchers, we have a certain inertia. And that hold us back. But I think this is what, if you are keeping up to date with industry trends, with your particular research field and what is happening, I think this is a fast way to actually close this gap on what's happening between industry and the type of research that's going on in our labs and the type of graduates we need to train in order to get to that industry. So yeah, it's just about researchers and academics being a little bit more responsible and keeping up to date with the latest trends. That's just my opinion.
It's great. That's a great opinion. So Samson, I see that you're unmuted, so go for it. Ask your question, make a statement.
Yeah, Tricia, it's actually nice to listen to our presentation and to actually see this wonderful work from KwaZulu-Natal University. I was there some years back, but it's awesome to actually see her. But it will be so good if you really come on board, and it will also be wonderful if you can actually also link up with Rhodes University. They are part of the GCC already, and it will be wonderful if we can have more of you on the board. And most importantly, we need visibility. We need visibility. We need more universities in Africa. We need more universities in the continent to actually, and I believe sincerely, Nigeria, South Africa, if Morocco, yeah, and if we play the leadership role, every other country in the continent will join. So it's nice to have you on board. Personally, I will have to personally keep in touch with you and to see that in not too far from now you join the GCC. And I also like to invite you to the ABC conference that will be coming up in Morocco later in the year, which will be nice to share. And on the final note, have you considered the economic value in terms of resources? If you use SFC and the normal chromatography technique, what's the in terms of economic value, in terms of resources utilization? Is it better off, or is it more expensive? Is it cheaper? So have you looked at it in terms of economic viability? Thank you.
Thanks, Samson. Yes, definitely. I agree with you. We need to work together to try to become more visible and spread this message for the universities across Africa. And I'm involved in a couple of other organizations to which I will be pushing this agenda as well. And thank you so much for the invite. You can contact me at the end of the session and I can send you my email address so we can talk further. With regards to the economics, I don't have a quantification for you, but I can tell you that for SFC, yes, there's an initial investment, and right now SFC is sort of an SFC system is sort of the same price as one would invest in an HPLC, but I really feel like it's definitely advantageous because I'm no longer paying for silica. I'm no longer paying for disposal of waste at my university. This is a high cost. And the throughput is much faster because here I can purify maybe 5 sets of compound if you're taking 5 days. Whereas in the past, 5 sets of compounds in normal chromatography will take us 2 weeks. So I don't have a quantification for you on the numbers, but definitely I can tell you it's advantageous for the type of chemistry and method development that we do at our lab. So, but we can be in touch. Thank you, Samson.
This is wonderful. This is what this event is all about, is making connections. So connecting the people that may not know that they are near each other or doing work that really they should be sharing. So this has been a wonderful discussion. So thank you so much, Tricia, for sharing your work. I am just going to share a slide for where we are going next. And we are going into what we call BYOR, which is bring your own resource or request. We do have a shared drive that you can share your resources. It's our Google site that we have. That link was in the invitation email that you got. But really this time is for networking and connecting. So if you're not giving a presentation, giving us that time and space to interact with each other. Again, a reminder that it is that general guideline of speak up and step back. So give an introduction to yourself, your name, your affiliation, a resource that you know about or a resource you created or a request you have about a resource as well for this community. I think we are all on different levels of our understanding and journey in green chemistry education. And so do remember that code of conduct. But I know that NIM has set us up in breakout rooms on the back side. And so I believe there's about 10 people in each breakout room. So we are going to be in these breakout rooms until about 12:55. And then we will pull you back for a short break before we go to our next presentation. So NIM, are you ready to send us to those breakout rooms?
Yes, I am. And I would just like to add, if anyone has any trouble getting into the breakout rooms, you can just unmute yourself and I can manually assign you to one as well. So, but let's try this.